Welcome, my dear ones. This is Tracy Anderson Askew, your host for the Transform Your Birth podcast, changing your mind about birth one story at a time. Each week, we'll be exploring a birth story through the lens of what birth can teach us. I'll be digging deep into each story so you can learn what it is that can change the way a birth unfolds. We can't control birth, but we can influence it. So listen in to find out how. Enjoy. Bonnie and Steve share their tragic story of multiple losses. Overcoming the fear during Evie's pregnancy was always going to be their biggest mountain. They worked with me by doing the Transform Your Birth course and stayed connected to our community during their pregnancy. What unfolded from there is worth listening to. An inspirational story from an exceptional couple. Hi everyone, welcome back. This week we have a very, very special story, and it's a story of pregnancy after loss. And I've got my beautiful friends Bonnie and Steve, who came to me after going through a lot of loss with trying to bring their family into this world. And so I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to let them tell the story, but welcome you two. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we might start with you, Bonnie. If you want to just give us a little bit of a history into you coming into birthing this beautiful little baby, Evie, who is almost 2 years old. Tell us about your journey to get here.
Yeah, so Evie, we named her Evelyn, which means wished for child. And Evie is possibly the most loved and wished for child in the universe. Experienced immense loss and heartache over the past 6 or 7 years. Our journey to parenthood started in 2015, 2016. We were married in 2013, thought we'd start trying for a family and fill our lovely home with some kitties around 2015-16. We fell pregnant in early 2016 with a beautiful little girl who we named Grace, but she was stillborn due to a severe heart deformity in June 2016. So that was really heartbreaking to lose our first child, our first pregnancy, our first little girl. The doctors and all of the health professionals around us were saying that it was a bad luck card, that the risks being thrown at us were 1 in 8,000 of a baby being born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome or dying from hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And so we were told, there's no evidence in your genetic history or anything you've done to say this will happen again. So full steam ahead. If you're ready, when you're ready, plan again for future pregnancies. So the following year we thought, okay, we've grieved, we've done a lot in honour of Grace and fundraised and done lots of charity work in honour of people that lose babies. So we're feeling pretty strong now. Let's try again. And we thought we'd try about a year later and fell pregnant again with another little girl. And she was growing and thriving, and we got really excited and thought it's finally our time. We've had our bad luck, and started filling her nursery and buying her lots of things, having lots of regular scans. Everything was looking good until it wasn't so good. We went in for one of our regular scans in December 2017. And she was already gone. She had no heartbeat. Just like that, we had another little daughter, another little baby taken away from us.
Matilda.
We named her Matilda, and she joined Grace up in heaven, and we were now left with 2 awful experiences, having no living children. Fast forward from there, we didn't really have much hope left, but the doctors again were telling us that it was just another bad luck thing. This time it was my placenta that had issues. She hadn't grown as much as she should have, hence why she passed. And so we had these 2 really random, rare events occur, and the doctors assured us that there was nothing telling that it would happen again. We got a bit of help and a bit more advice this time after having a second loss, but we ploughed forward and plan for future pregnancies. Long story short, we had two more pregnancies that resulted in early miscarriages. So we were up to pregnancy number 5 at this point.
Wow.
Um, After the 4 losses, the 2 stillbirths and the 2 miscarriages, we sought out an amazing professor who worked for Red Nose, and we went to meet with him in Newcastle, and he specialises in the prevention of preterm birth and stillbirth. And he tested us for everything under the sun. We did all of the normal genetic testing, but then we did ECGs and things to determine if there was anything in our heart activity that could determine if we were the carriers of a particular syndrome. All of these crazy scientific
Wow.
things he tested us for. And the only thing came back was this genetic mutation that a lot of people carry, and it can create all sorts of health things from allergies through to cancers, through to pregnancy loss. And so we both carried this genetic variance, but the professor assured us that with a simple system of some vitamins and blood thinning medication, we had a much more sure chance of carrying a full term healthy pregnancy in future. So I rapidly started taking all the vitamins he suggested. I rapidly started taking low dose aspirin that he suggested. And we did that for a solid year just to make sure that we had, well, mentally that we were prepared, and we had grieved and had mentally prepared for a future pregnancy, but then also for my body to have the best chance possible. I pumped it full of all the vitamins and things that he suggested.
Daily injections.
Daily injections and things,
Wow.
but it was nothing like IVF. I don't have the experience of IVF. So whilst I say that it was a lot of injections and things, it wasn't, I can't compare to someone who's been through that journey, because that's a whole new level. So we were quite fortunate in that all we had to take was a bunch of vitamins. And long story short, we fell pregnant in December 2020 very quickly, which doesn't normally happen. And we had a very long 9 or 10 months of growing this baby and having weekly appointments between midwife one week, scan the following week, sometimes both in the same week. We were at the hospital no less than weekly though. And baby was thriving, growing, everything was working perfectly. And she was born healthy, screaming, crazy, smiling in August 2021. And to this day, we can pay thanks to that amazing professor from Red Nose who helped us get to this point, because I knew in my heart that we weren't done being parents. I knew in my heart that we were meant to bring home a living child. And from the moment that I got that positive pregnancy test in December 2020, I knew that it was different. There was just something internally that felt different, that this was it. The 10 months were full of anxiety and tears and trauma. But always I leant back on the fact that I just knew this was it. I knew this was going to happen. So there's something different this time.
Wow, what a ride. Ooh. Now, Bonnie and Steve, let's go to the point now in your pregnancy where you're over the sort of, well, I mean, you would never get over, sometimes getting over certain weeks makes you feel like, okay, we're safe now. I don't think you ever had that luxury. But at this point, you had a live baby and you contacted me. I'll never forget that conversation and hearing your story for the first time. When you reached out because you realised you needed to start to prepare for this birth, talk about that. What was that like? And then I'd like to hear Steve talk about where he was too at that point before we met up.
Yeah. So way back in the day, before we were pregnant, and in the hope that we would have a future live birth, I said, because with the girls, with our stillborn girls, I had been induced. I had went through a natural labour with both of them, and it was the most beautiful experience, but super painful and full of heartache, really. So I said, radio, in future, having a C-section, we get that baby out as quickly as possible. I don't want to go through that labour process again. I don't want to go through all that pain. And even from 2015, when we started trying, I was terrified of going through the pain of labour. I just thought in my little brain that I wouldn't be able to survive that pain. This is not, I can't do this. And so then when I already had that from the outset, and then when you add in all of the loss, I thought, I'm going to need some serious help getting me through this labor thing. The pregnancy is one thing, but how am I going to survive, let alone ensure that we have a surviving child out of this? Like I was quite lost. And our best friend is also a bereaved mum. We met her through the losses of our first daughters. She is now a qualified midwife, but at the time we were pregnant, she was a student midwife. And she was our biggest cheerleader in this whole pregnancy journey, especially
Wow.
as we geared up closer to birth. And it was Ali who told us about you, Tracy. We'd heard whispers of it, but I thought that's not for me. Like, I just want to get this baby out. I don't want to deal with the beautiful birth thing. I just want this baby out. But she, and for Steve as well, was adamant that this is something that we both really needed to do, to meet with you, to get your help. And I was super excited that maybe this would be our ticket to realizing that we can have a beautiful labor again and a beautiful birth experience. Steve was a little bit more skeptical and wasn't sure if this course was going to do much for us, but well, you changed our world over that phone call and that weekend that we met you. And ever since then, you just totally changed the course of our later stages of our pregnancy and our birth. 100%.
What an honour for me, I tell you. Steve, tell us about how you were around that period of time and the idea of thinking about birth in a way that, you know, wasn't so medically oriented and always with that fear. How are you in that space?
But I'm very practical minded. I'm a tradie, so I take things as it comes. I knew going into this that we just had to give it a crack. What happens, happens. Hope for the best. Yeah. Bonnie told me about the course. I was somewhat skeptical. I thought, how does the course teach you how to have children and whatnot? And so begrudgingly, I came along, and
You got dragged along.
within hours, you had me hooked.
Wow.
Just the way you spoke to us, it was a life-changing moment, and it helped. It helped me realize what we were going into, how we needed to prepare. But yeah, so for a skeptic like me to go to something like that, and now I tell people that they need to do the course as well.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. But look, yeah, myself, I was scared, to be honest. Every scan we went to, Bonnie would have her eyes shut, and we'd hold hands, and I'd give her a squeeze when there was a heartbeat. And I was just terrified that we were gonna get the bad news again. But yeah, look, I think after we saw the professor, and we had a new lease of hope. And
another thing that helped Steve take a bit of ownership, not ownership, but a bit of like control around the pregnancy too. And this is a bit of a fun fact, but I, for various reasons, didn't want to know the gender. I didn't want to know the gender because I was too worried that if I heard it was a particular gender, my mind would go to loss. But I was also kind of excited for a bit of a surprise this time, do something a bit different, which we hadn't done before. We'd always found out the gender straight away. Steve found out the gender and I didn't. And he found out from 10 weeks gestation, and he kept it secret from me and had a lot of fun with it. He's a bloody comedian and was playing tricks on me every day with the gender thing. Like, I was adamant we were having a boy one day, and then the next week I was adamant we're having a girl. But that was like Steve having that knowledge. No one else knew except for our best friend Ali. The two of them knowing that, it just fueled our positive vibes through the whole pregnancy. And
put a little bit of humor into something that was so
Mm.
anxiety
Yeah, yeah.
drenched, so
The human spirit, hey, it never ceases to amaze me what we have to sometimes overcome. And in the middle of the intense fear of what if, you could find humor and find a way to make her laugh and have fun
despite everything
is
that's
such a
happened.
credit and such a powerful a powerful example of the human spirit.
And that humor carried right through my labor. I have a photo of Steve and my best friend Ali absolutely cracking up at some video they're bloody watching on their phone while I'm on the bed in lots of pain. I'm just howling with laughter at this. I took a photo of them while I thought, oh, I need to remember this moment. But like that humor, it's part of our relationship anyway. We've always tried to find light, and that's how we survive the grief, really, through not just humor, but through finding light again. But yeah, that it's like people laugh about it and think that that's a given. You need to have a bit of a laugh in life, but that saved us.
Yeah, that's a whole new level, isn't it?
Mm.
So I'm really curious now, how, going through the course, what were the things that really landed for you that started to switch the way you were able to manage moving forward?
So I like to think I'm a pretty spiritual person, but I never believed in meditation ever. Like I just thought, well, I couldn't do it. I really struggled to meditate. I'd tried for a lot of years and just couldn't, it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then there were practical exercises we did with you over the course of the weekend. And there was one in particular, one meditation that took me to a whole different place.
Mm-hmm.
And it proved to me that, okay, there's something there, because a lot of this anxiety that we're experiencing is in our minds. Like it's something I've got to do to alter my brain. I've done everything I can do to give my body a healthy chance of growing a baby, but I haven't done enough to sort of change my mindset and alter my brain. And this one particular activity we did, I can't remember the specifics of it, sorry, but it took me to a place called Flinders Island in Tasmania where my grandparents live. And my dad was born and raised, and it's a whole new world. It's a totally different place. And I went there in this meditation to visit my nan and pop, and my pop has now passed away. So it was quite an emotional experience for me going there and being with them on the beach, getting nan's advice. And I think it was a 20-minute meditation. And I woke up from that realizing how strong my mind can be and how I can really draw on that powerful meditation experience and your voice as well in the meditation experience in something like experience. And maybe about a month, I'm going to say a month after the course, I had a awful experience at home where my feet were quite swollen. And the last time my feet were quite swollen was the days before we lost Matilda. I freaked out. So I got Steve to check my blood pressure at home. It was high, so I freaked out more. Went down to the local pharmacy, checked my blood pressure. It was still high, but not high enough to be hospitalised, but high enough for me to call our continuity midwife and have a chat with her. Now, chatting through it with her, she didn't think that it was medically needed for me to attend the hospital, but I was given the choice to if I wanted. But I decided to allow time to let it calm down a bit because it was quite late dinner time sort of thing at that point. And meantime, while I was on the phone to them, Steve had been digging through all of your audio files to find this meditation that we did on your course because he knew that it had done something for me. So we both laid down, he found it. We both laid down for 20 minutes and did the meditation. I contributed to it fully. Like I was no longer a non-believer in meditation at this point. Like I knew that it had worked. So I was like, let's give this a red hot crack because I really don't want to go to the hospital. Like I don't like hospitals. That would stir up even more for me. Anyway, 20 minutes later, my blood pressure was well and truly back to normal. My swelling had gone down and I had controlled my mind. I was back on track. I was positive. Bonnie was back on track. And 100% it was thanks to that meditation. So
Mm.
I knew from that point, maybe we were like a month out now from birth. I knew at that point in my birth plan, Tracy's voice, Tracy's meditation tracks must be playing the entire labor.
It was first on the playlist.
So that was, and if I can jump forward a little bit now, sorry to jump around, but to the labor with Evie, every time your voice stopped on the tracks,
I was in trouble.
quick, put it back on now. I need to hear it. So I was totally in this meditative state the whole time, thanks to you, and that particular activity saved me 100%.
So what that's highlighting to those listening is the power of the mind. You see, birth is not so much a physical thing as much as it is a mental physical thing, and the mind and the body are completely connected. And the mind is looking for answers, and I suspect that your experience of that meditation gave you a sense of the power of your own mind, Bonnie.
Yeah, 100%.
And you were able to tap into a much deeper wisdom, which when we do the practices like this, particularly if you really commit to them, and for you too, it was more important because you'd had so much fear, you wanted to counteract that fear with excitement and joy and love and other physiology for both you and for little Evie. And the what you've just shared with us is such a powerful example of the way we can harness our mind and direct our mind in a way that can support whatever situation that we're in. That's an incredible story. Steve, tell us, what was it about your experience of doing the course that helped you to switch a little bit?
I guess being not our first pregnancy, but our first full-term pregnancy, and that I wasn't very good in science and things at school, and probably didn't listen much in class, but I didn't know much.
You and me both, Steve.
I didn't know but what to expect. Going into it and learning the science behind the birth and the different stages, it drew me in. It was interesting. It was like I was back at school again, actually being a good student and absorbing all of the wisdom that you were teaching us. Wisdom is power for sure. And it made me feel powerful, supportive as a husband. I had a role now.
Very important one.
100%. And yeah, I was just most impressed with the whole course. It was a total turnaround. I went from being a practical to a knowledgeable partner. Still practical.
Yeah,
but look, the turnaround point was 5 minutes in, I reckon, when you introduce yourself and you swore a bit, and I like that.
Yeah, I do. I love the F-bomb. It's one of my favourite words.
Yeah, look, and that made me really comfortable as well, funnily enough. So, but I can't begin to tell you how beneficial that was for me.
Yeah.
And then being at the hospital and knowing, the signs and things, and
being
through
able to read it.
Through the pregnancy, different stages, and what I've got to do now, and we didn't need the doctors there. It was all me.
We had the process, like the birth and the labor experience was very, like, we didn't go from plan A. Plan A did kind of go out the window after the induction process didn't work. So we did it wasn't exactly according to plan, but we were able to hold it together quite well because Steve was reminding me of all of these knowledge points that you had taught him. And like when I was in labor and I was asking for pain relief or was getting like to the transition point, Steve was the one sort of pinpointing all of the different things you'd said, teaching us about the different stages of labor and all of those factual things. Steve was able to if I looked at him, he was able to sort of confirm, yep, babe, this is right. Or like, he didn't even have to say anything. He'd just give me that look where I knew everything's okay because he knows what's going on right now. I'm in a world of hurt, but
I was the brains and she was just doing the job.
He was the body.
Yeah.
The body, the birthing body.
Yeah.
One thing we'll also touch on, Bonnie had no drugs.
Yeah. Well, I'm keen to get into the birth, but before I do, I just want to help those listening, particularly if they too have had these experiences, of helping them to understand how I do my best to really start to switch people who've had a history of loss into a space of, okay, this is about moving forward. Now, one of the realities, as a childbirth educator, my job is to prepare people for the mystery. And it doesn't matter what your history is, there's a mystery up ahead.
Yeah.
And that can be very anxiety provoking, particularly in our world where we're so used to being in control. And so really what's required is a surrender. Now, I can't say to Bonnie and Steve, oh, yeah, it's going to be fine this time, everything's going to be great, because I can't say that. I don't know. But what I can do is help them to understand that a fear like that is not something you're ever going to get rid of. I talk about fears in the class, and there are 3 types of fears. Some fears you can let go of when you know more, and some fears you'll never let go of. And then there are some that you can sometimes twist around or reframe in a way that you can accept. But the ones that you will never let go of, the most obvious one there is the fear of loss. Now, that's a fear that nobody can talk away or, say, oh, it'll be fine, or we can't do that stuff. And I don't ever try and do that stuff. But what I can do is say, you can't live with that fear front and center as the focus of your attention, because if you do, that's going to create a physiology which is more akin to tension, stress, less blood flow to the baby, less feel-good hormones, because you're in a state of stress. What you've got to do with a fear like that is just pull it away from the front and pop it in your pocket, because you're going to have to walk around with it. Now, the good thing about those fears is that they help us to find what we've got to do to protect ourselves and the people we love. They're very, very motivating. Okay, and that's what motivated you two to go looking for that wonderful doctor in Newcastle, to go looking for answers, to do the genetic testing. You did all the things you could that you had control of to create the best conditions for your next daughter to come into this world. So those fears have to sit in your pocket. But one of the things you don't want to do is to live that pregnancy with love. What you want to do is you marinate your baby with love, okay? Marinate your baby with oxytocin, the love hormone, which is very highly present in pregnant women. And if you cook your baby in love juices, no matter how long they're here, you've given your baby the best physiological version of yourself that you can give them. And that's what you have control over. The rest is in the hands of the gods. But if you can stay connected to your baby, talk to your baby, bring love, joy, laughter, like Steve does beautifully with Bonnie. And also, one of the things that really struck me about you too is how connected you were. Going through loss like that can really drive a wedge between couples. And I can still sense you're as connected today, 2 years into your parenting journey, as you were when I first met you both. When we're together, we can get through anything, and we do tend to complement each other. So when the other's low, the other one can lift you up, and vice versa. So it's the only sort of frame of reference that I've found to be really effective to help people to overcome, what really is in everybody's mind, history or no history. The pink elephant in the room is what happened. What if something happens? And loss is the flip side of loving. We live with it today, every day, with the people that we love. We don't know how long we're going to be here, or how long our parents are here, or the people that we love. But we can't live in fear. We've got to make the most of each and every moment we have together. So I imagine there was a bit of a swing around that. Wow, thank you so much for helping us to understand your process of change around being ready for this baby. I imagine there was still plenty of monitoring going on. Tell us about the birth now. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So I think the whole way through the pregnancy, from day one, when we got that positive pregnancy test, my mantra, it sort of changed as months went on, but generally it was new pregnancy, different baby, different pregnancy, different baby. So like whilst we've had an awful experience, this is a new day, a new chapter.
Wow.
And I took that right through to the birth. So in the birth, because I had had a pretty traumatic experience with our second daughter Matilda's birth, I had a postpartum hemorrhage on top of the loss. I was also very mindful going into the birth that this was a new baby, a new pregnancy, and a new birth. I had to really push that fear out of my mind that something like a hemorrhage or, loss was one thing, but also I had these other mixed fears with the complications of birth too. So we decided, we'd sort of been deciding throughout the whole pregnancy, but made the final decision maybe about 36 weeks in that we would be induced. I didn't like the idea of being induced. Through a lot of what we'd learnt on the course, I wanted to really give my body a chance to do its thing full term and let labour happen naturally. But I did really well to control my mind up till about 36, 38 weeks, and I just needed that baby in my arms, just wanted them out and safe, and we knew that they were healthy at that point. So at 38 weeks, we were invited to an induction window of time at the Canberra Hospital, which was a 5-day window. We didn't know what day it would be. Depending on medical emergencies that they would have, it could have extended beyond that time. So, we'd waited sort of 9-10 months, but I reckon that 5-day window felt like another 9 or 10 months of waiting for that call to come in, the induction.
Watching the clock,
waiting for the phone call. The midwife would call every morning, but I wouldn't know if it was going to be a yep, come in, or no, sorry, not today. But it was for the 4 days anyway, it was no, sorry, not today, not today. And I was like, oh, one day I was like, okay, I'm okay with that because I'm not ready to give birth yet. I need another day. And then the next day I was like, I am ready now. I was ready yesterday. Like, why can't it be today? Anyway, we got to it was a Sunday morning and they said, okay, you're on. And it was the 8th of August, the 8th of the 8th. And Steve has Chinese heritage in his family, and that lucky 88 number was just right up there. We knew we were having an August baby in 8, but the 8th was like the ideal date for us because we sort of a bit spiritual like that. And then we arrived at the hospital that afternoon to room 8 of the Canberra Hospital birthing suites. So I was like, I like this. This is a good.
And we live at number 8.
Anyway, it was a good start. I felt like all the good vibes were in the room. We were met there by our continuity midwife who had supported us throughout the whole pregnancy. Steve was there. I was there. My best friend, Ali, who was a student midwife at the time, but there in a personal support capacity, met us there as well. And we met a bunch of other staff. The induction was started sort of later that afternoon with the mindset that see what happens overnight, try and let you sleep and let your body do its thing with the induction working overnight. So they tried to put a balloon catheter in. That failed. It was a very painful process trying to get it in, and it failed. So they gave me a bit of time to recover from that, an hour or so. Tried a second balloon, also failed, not working, not happening. And they brought in the big guns for the third time and brought in other instruments and things to try and get this damn balloon in, and it still didn't work. So third time lucky, and I was in all sorts of pain by then, and the bloody specular thing that they'd tried to insert the balloon with broke inside me. So I was like, I've had enough. Like, no more balloons. Like, what's next on the and so at this point, like, my good vibes had kind of gone to a little bit pissed off because, like, I just want something to happen. And so then they offered the next step to be the tape that they inserted on my cervix.
Yeah.
And at that point it was bedtime and I was really tired, so they inserted the tape and gave me some sleeping pills to help me sleep overnight. the midwives were coming in and checking me. One particular midwife kept getting really excited, saying, "You sure you don't need any more pain relief yet, Bonnie? Like, there's definitely uterine activity happening, and you might be feeling a bit of a pinch now." I was like, "Yeah, I'm feeling it, but I'm okay." And I kind of liked feeling it, knowing that something was working. And he said, "I reckon by tomorrow morning when you wake up, we'll be calling your continuity midwife in, like it'll be all systems go." So the morning rolled around and I was getting excited. I was still feeling this uterine activity, and I thought, yeah, we're on today. And they decided to do a examination to see how dilated I was. And I was not dilated. I was like 1, not even 2 centimeters. And I knew the magic number was 2 centimeters to be able to artificially break my waters. And I was not even close to 2. So I was very upset at this point because I had thought this was it. This was our moment. It was going to happen, and my body was doing its thing, and it wasn't.
That's when we went for the walk.
So we went for a lot of walks to try and, first of all, we went for a lot of walks because Practical Steve stepped in and said, "Let's go for walks to try and get you another 1 centimeter dilated. Like, surely things are happening. We can get things moving. So let's go find all the stairs and walk on all the curbs." And we walked from one end of the hospital to the other. And I came back and I was like 1.5 centimeters barely. So kind of a bit of movement progress, but not really. And I got really upset at this point. And I said words to the effect of, "I'm going home. I will just let my body do its own thing. I don't think the baby's ready yet. Maybe this is my body telling me that I'm not ready yet, and bad things are going to happen if I have this baby now." All of the bad thoughts crept in. All the fears crept in very quickly. So had a lot of chats to the midwives because I had come to know them and respect them, being the continuity midwives too. And they couldn't really give me a straight answer with what they thought I should do. They said pretty much that I should just wait it out. So then we went for another long walk, but not to try and get anything working this time, just to get some fresh air and some perspective. We went for a walk outside. It was freezing cold, but I took all my jumpers and things off just to like let that cold air hit me in the face and get some perspective back into my brain because I was so lost at that point. And we talked about all the different plans, like plan A, well, not plan A, but one plan is to go home, but that's just crazy. The next plan could be see the obstetrician, and the obstetrician might be able to make a call whether they break your waters a little bit less than 2 centimeters. That brings about complications in itself, though. And I didn't want complications. So we ran through all the different scenarios, and I cried a lot and we didn't know what to do. But one thing that stuck in my mind was the obstetrician that was on duty. She had a mask on, but I could see her eyes. And I personally knew her through friends of friends. And I remembered her eyes looking at me, and I just trusted that she knew what she was doing. And I trusted that I was in the best hands. I just had this feeling of immense trust in her. So I said, I want to go back and I want to talk to that obstetrician. I want to get her take on whether she thinks it's safe for me to have my waters broken if I'm shy of 2 centimeters. So I went back in and I said, it'll probably involve another examination, which I don't love, but I'm okay with it at this point. I talked to the midwives one last time about any last advice they've got before I talk to this obstetrician. And they said, if the obstetrician is comfortable to break your waters now, just try and negotiate for time, because once they break your waters, you will be on their clock. And if you haven't had any more activity or movement or labour progressing by a certain time on that clock, you'll be moved into the theatre for a C-section. And so they said, try and buy as much time as you can beyond what their clock is telling them. So I thought, okay, I can do that. So the obstetrician came in and she said, you're just shy of 2 centimeters, but I am comfortable with her trusted eyes looking at me over her mask. I am comfortable to break your waters now. And I said, what about the time thing? And she was comfortable working with me on that and wasn't held to their very strict time lines. So I agreed to have my waters broken. So in they went with their little hook and broke my waters, and they hooked me up to the Syntocin drip pretty quickly. And I said, can we just go slowly but surely? Don't hammer me too much with that drip too soon. Slowly, slowly, please. So the waters were broken at lunchtime, and it was full steam ahead from there. And I had the best labour experience from there. I didn't have any complications. My birth plan was fully utilized, except for the fact that I thought I wanted water and a bath as part of my labor plan. But we tried the shower and I hated it. So I was like, I thought I would have loved a water birth and a water thing. And I was like, no, get me out of here. This is not working. So for about 4 hours, I sat on a bright yellow gym ball and just bounced away on this gym ball, and Steve massaged my back and played your meditation tracks and some other music, had my essential oils burning. I had various midwives come in and see me, one in particular who clocked off for the day but clocked back on because she had delivered our stillborn daughter Matilda, and she wanted to be there as part of this labour experience. Wow. So she carried me through for a couple of hours, just knowing that she was intertwined as part of this story again, like not just her being there, but just knowing that she was part of this journey and was meant to be there. That helped get me through for a couple of hours. I had a bit of the gas, but to be honest, I was more utilizing that as biting down really hard on the mouthpiece rather than the gas hitting me. So for about 4 hours, I labored early labor, and then from about 4 p.m., I was definitely in active labor, and I was in active labor on the gym ball, on and off the gym ball, sort of walking, swaying with Steve, doing the labor dance a little bit. And then I did not believe them when they said that they think I'm in transition. In my mind, I was hours away. I was like, no, like this, no, like, are we really at this point? Like, you want me to start pushing? Why are you asking me if I feel the need to push yet? Like, this can't be it. I can't be here yet. I haven't had any drugs. Like, where's my epidural? Like, what? And like they're like, oh no, you're starting to show signs of it. Like my voice was changing. I didn't notice, but they explained this after. And so I agreed to another examination, and they confirmed that I was fully dilated. And I still to this day can't believe that I fully dilated without pain relief, without not even the pain relief thing. Like I don't want to be like a superhero not having drugs. Like I would take the drugs tomorrow if I needed it, but I just couldn't believe that my body had done it, and I couldn't believe that I had been induced, and after all that heartache of the induction not working, that it was actually working, like something was working in my favor for once, that we were actually doing this.
Wow.
And so
so before you go into second stage, Steve, what was that part like for you? How were you? First stage.
Look, I'm surprised how little panicked I was. I was quite calm. I mean, knowing that all the doctors and nurses were around and they were doing their bit, but it was more sitting next to Bonnie, holding her hand, talking her through it. You're doing a great job. Make sure you're breathing, and excitement. I think excitement was stronger than any other feeling at that point.
Yeah.
Did
you feel like you were useful?
100%. We had a TENS machine, and I was watching the heart rate monitor, and I knew when she was going to have a contraction because the numbers would rise suddenly, and she'd start making noises, and that's when I'd start hitting that button, and so look, I was quite active through the whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't ever get the sense that he was lost or being pushed to the side or sitting in a corner not knowing what to do. Like he was fully present. There was
one panic moment though where the phone went flat. And,
Your voice stopped playing.
The voice stopped. And get the charger out. And
Jeepers, I hope you had a charger. You'd have been in big trouble.
Yeah. About 5 minutes.
You'd have to ring me and say, quick, come and get your voice in here.
Start talking.
Oh, wow. So tell us about second stage when you started pushing.
Yeah. I discovered a new side to myself that I never knew existed with how fierce I am. And I got quite angry, I guess. So I remember I was very vocal, and I always thought these women that make a lot of noise, like, come off it. You don't need to be that loud. Like that, like
Oh, you were
I was,
always going to be loud then, weren't you, with that attitude?
Yeah.
I was, I was like, still to this day, I'm like, oh my God.
It wasn't high pitched though, which
No,
which
primal,
is
I'll bet.
surprise.
Yeah,
No,
it was
it was
very primal, very animalistic, and I never saw myself being like that. Like normally I'm quite a type A, very empathetic, quietly spoken mostly, and like I'm just not that loud person in the room. And here I was, the loudest in the whole bloody hospital for sure. And I remember I say angry because I could see the monitor screen, and they'd put a clip on Evie's head to monitor her heart rate.
Yeah.
And I could see at certain points where her heart rate was dropping a bit in certain contractions and certain pushes. And I said to them, I was trying my best, but I was in so much pain. Just, I was taken aback by the pain of pushing. I was prepared for the pain of contractions, but I wasn't compared to the pain. I wasn't ready for the pain of pushing. And I remember angrily saying to my midwife, "You did not tell me this was going to hurt so much." I was just so angry that I had not been warned about this.
Oh,
Is the best way I could describe it. I was so angry that I had prepared all of this time for the contractions, but not for the pushing stage. I don't know what I was bloody thinking, but I was just like so angry. And then when I could see her heart rate sort of fluctuating a bit, the midwife said to me very sternly back, because she wasn't going to back down from me, "You need to breathe in this way." And she physically showed me a particular way to breathe, a bit more of a faster, shorter, sharper breathing rather than my big, deep breaths.
yeah.
And once I combated that, once I got on top of that sort of breathing technique,
Yeah.
my anger calmed down, the pain sort of tapered off a bit, and I was able to focus on just birthing Evie. I didn't know it was a girl at this point, just birthing this precious baby, making sure her heart rate, like the animalistic side of me was like, her heart rate's fluctuating. I will do everything in my power right now to make sure that her heart rate is stable. And I was just doing everything possible to make sure she was okay. It wasn't about me anymore. And there was even a point where my best friend told me this afterwards, but I was writhing in pain and writhing around up to my right hand side, looking up and away. And I thought that was me trying to get away from the pain. I thought that was me trying to, fight or flight. I was flying, trying to get away from that pain. But my friend is adamant, and I think she is spot on. That was me writhing around, twisting over to the right to get Evie down that birth canal, because her heart rate was fluctuating because she was not stuck, but she was sort of stuck in a certain part of the birth canal. And that was my body, animalistic tendencies, knowing that I needed to twist that certain way to get her down. And then shortly after that, her little head popped out. And once her head popped out, I thought, you are kidding me. I can't now birth her body. Like, I can't go through all of this now. I thought what I had just done to birth her head, I needed to do all over again for another hour to birth the rest of her body. And so the shock of my life when her little shoulders and whole body suddenly just slipped out not long after her head, and she was born, and she was out, and she was crying, and I'd done, and she was there. It was just like the best feeling.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, it was just, and like they picked her up, and I was expecting in that moment when she was born that I would just be bawling my eyes out, just a sobbing mess. But I did not cry. I didn't cry once. I just was so
exhausted.
But I was just in that moment, it might sound a little bit weird, but I felt a very, very similar sense of peace to when I birthed Grace and Matilda. The moment that they were placed in my arms was very, very similar to Evie, in that I had my girl, she was with me, but this time she was breathing and crying and so healthy and just perfection. The one thing I do remember saying once she was in my arms is how tiny she was. She's just a tiny little perfect bundle of
2.42.
2.9.
2.
2.9 kilograms. So she was quite tiny, but she still is to this day our little pocket rocket. She's just a tiny little crazy bundle of energy, and she's been that from the day she was born.
Wow.
And the tears eventually came. I realized, hours later and days later, what we had finally achieved, and this beautiful little girl was finally here. But also I forgot to mention the best part of the birth once she was born. That was Steve's moment to announce the gender. So they pulled her out and put her on my chest, and I was like, no. And before I even had a chance to ask, Steve just said, welcome, little Evie, because we'd chosen the name. So I knew it was either going to be the boy's name or the girl's name. And Steve had the honor of telling me in my ear, just privately, sort of between us, that it was our little Evie was here. And that was like, just the best moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, Steve, tell us, how was that for you when she arrived?
Oh, look, I wanted to be everywhere. I wanted to be with Bonnie next to her, but I wanted to be at the other end. I wanted to be watching, and I wanted to be.
What end do I go to?
I know, yeah. Look, I was so excited, but look, most of my focus up until crunch time was Bonnie. I think it was just letting her break my hand, and just keeping her calm, make sure she kept breathing, and I was being the voice for her. I could tell if she needed something, I'd convey that to the midwife, and then back. I was like the translator. I guess.
Yeah, good metaphor.
When it happened, I was there, and they asked if I wanted to help, pull or catch her. I said, no, that's what you're getting paid for. So
earn your money.
Yeah, come on. But I cut the cord, which was that was a pretty cool moment. Scary but cool. And then the first time I held her, I've still got the photo. It's my screen.
I've got that photo too. You sent me that photo.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I saw it. You looked smitten.
Yeah.
Well, Steve had all the full look in of her, because when they placed her on my chest, her face was facing outwards. So everyone else was doting over her and looking at her. And I hadn't actually fully seen her face. So Steve, I just let him have his moment. He just stared at her and talked to her. I knew it was a girl. I knew she was healthy. So I'd see her face in like minutes. But just let Steve soak in that moment of me holding her. He could see her. And that's how that photo was, him just like staring into her eyes and her staring back at you. And she still gives him that same look now. Like even as a newborn, she'd just stare at Steve. And then now you just catch her just staring at her daddy. So it's just stuck there. It's just stayed.
What a journey. My goodness. We don't always know what sort of a ride we're going to go on when we welcome these little souls into our bodies, and we have to go through the process of growing them and birthing them, and the mystery of what's enfolded into that journey is something we have to find a way of managing, and the realization that we are truly not in control. We can influence things. We can work with our own growth and our own transformation going through that. But at the end of the day, this whole journey is inviting us to roll with life and what happens. And of course, that's completely symbolic of what parenting is about. We are not in control of these children. We can love them. We can care for them, protect them, feed them, guide them, teach them. But at the end of the day, they will be and do and become who they're designed to be and do in their lives. So what we learn through pregnancy and birth really does set us up for parenting. But when you've gone through a story like Bonnie and Steve has, it invites a new level of humility, respect, and you just don't take things for granted. You just realize in the blink of an eye how things, can be gone, people can be gone. And so with that humility and I guess the all of the things that had to unfold within you two as a couple to be able to manage that, what sort of a parent has it made you?
Yeah, I think parenting, so pregnancy after loss, birthing after loss is one thing, but parenting after loss, that has been a whole new chapter for us. For me, I thought we had been through the hard yards, this parenting thing, this mothering gig, walk in the park, like we've done the hard stuff, this will be fine. But it's been a lot harder than I anticipated. And then added onto that, Evie was born 3 days later, ACT went into its second hard lockdown, and we did not have our village to support us. And so here we were, sleep deprived parents. I definitely had, I haven't been diagnosed or anything with postpartum anxiety, but I definitely had, and probably still have now, a level of anxiety in parenting and raising Evie. She was this fragile little newborn. We had no one around to help us. We couldn't leave our house. We were in a hard lockdown and we had to figure it out for ourselves. And I had to get back into a healthy mind state. And the way we did that, probably various things we did, we banded together and we worked well as a team. But to be honest, we took Evie's lead. Even though she was this helpless little newborn, we still today, she's almost 2, we still take her lead. And we've been able to figure it out and work it out as our little family unit. And we've got lots of help now. The borders are open. We can have free access to people again. We can do all these amazing things that parents are now doing. But yeah, it was a hard start. And also she was a very colicky newborn. Right. So we did not have, I reckon first few weeks we had 5 hours sleep over that whole week. And we were exhausted and she was crying constantly. And Steve was often the only one that could console her. So then I felt quite a failed mother for not being able to help this poor baby that we'd so longed for. So the parenting after loss has been really hard. But now I can kind of see the light again. And I've been able to see the light again for quite a long time. But now that she's almost 2, she's just at the most spectacular age. She's tiny, so she's on the growth charts. For height, she's under 1 percentile, so she's short. But what she makes up for in her height, she makes up for her personality. She's just this firecracker, cannonball, running around, learning fast, developing fast, smarter than I ever expected a 2-year-old could be. She's just amazing us every single day right now. And I feel the joy of parenting so much now. And I would do it again. I thought after having so much loss and finally getting our daughter and pushing 40 years old now as well, I thought happy with being one and done. We've had our time, but I don't know what the future looks like for future babies. I'm not going to talk about that now, but I wouldn't say no to it. I could definitely do this mothering gig again. All of the hard stuff we've been through, including the early days with Evie being a newborn, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. And I think I feel a lot of confidence being a mum now, and I really enjoy it and thrive in it. I still have our hard days and nights, but I love our little family. I love our little life together.
What sort of a parent are you, Steve?
I'm the king.
The king of the house.
He does it all together as the king of our little family.
I'm the voice of reason. I'm the calm side of our marriage, I guess. And I know it's just my nature. I've always been calm and caring. But as a father, like that photo, every day when I pick her up, and she gives us a little kiss now, and it gives me shivers. I love it so much. Changing nappies, it's nothing. There's so much love there, the job's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
she's
a
definitely.
fierce protector though. I mean,
Oh, I'll bet.
yeah.
I think, like, with all the love that Steve gives, and we both give her, but like particularly Steve, I think like it's the reason we see her being so loving and quirky and funny is definitely Steve's uh impact on parenting her. Like, and maybe it's a bit of the nature versus nurture thing. Like, she's got a lot of Steve and I personality traits, but particularly like the love that we pour into her, we get back from her tenfold. So I've just seen the more love and respect we throw into her and into our family, the more we get back. And it's just this beautiful ripple effect of having this amazing little girl running around, loving us. We love her. And it's just, yeah, it's just so beautiful to see grow and change. Like, no day is the same right now and probably never will be. But yeah, I think I don't know if there'll be a photo to show, but she looks like Steve and has Steve's personality. Like, even when I was pregnant, we had the 3D scans. It was Steve's face in my belly. So I always knew we were going to have a mini Steve, but we're seeing that more and more now. Although her firecracker side probably gets that from my family. But yeah, she's just...
You're such a beautiful couple, and you've been through so much together, and she's a very blessed little girl to have parents who've been able to stay strong and solid through that.
So we've also taught her a lot about her sisters too, I must say. So whilst we've got this amazing happy ending with our little rainbow at the end of the storm with Evie, it's made us realize how much we love our Grace and Matilda as well, and how much we will always parent them. And Evie is probably too young to realize, but she knows about the stars, and we're going to teach her that her sisters are up in the stars, and they'll always be part of our Evie story. She'll learn about our beautiful girls growing up.
One gift we got given when Evie was born is, you can buy stars.
Name
a star.
Really?
You've got a binary star.
Wow.
So a binary star are two little stars that orbit each other that looks like one star. And they're in the Northern Hemisphere, and they're called Grace and Matilda. So
wow.
that's one of her first gifts.
Yeah, that was for Evie. That was a beautiful gift. Like, we got blankets and all the beautiful things you get for a new baby, but that was Evie's gift from my nan and auntie and uncle.
Wow.
And so she knows the stars on her wall are there, so she'll grow up learning about them, and it will all be intertwined as part of her story.
Beautiful. I want to thank you both for sharing such an intimate and incredible journey of building your family. And I want to thank the listeners for tuning in this week. And if you've made it to this part of the podcast, you're probably feeling very humble and touched and moved like I am right now. But this is what I get to do, and I'm very, very blessed to have people like Bonnie and Steve come to my classes and help me to witness the most amazing things. So big love to you both, and big love to our listeners, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and share this podcast. Transform Parenting is a childbirth and parenting education organisation that supports families through pregnancy all the way through the first 7 years of parenting. Why not watch our free webinar on Keeping Relaxed and Excited About Birth, where we discuss the 3 most important things that will change a birth. You'll find us at our website on www.transformparenting.com.au. Thanks for listening.